Hello and welcome to Musing. My name is Craig Seibert, and today I will be joined by my brother George Seibert. We love to talk about music. We're passionate about it, and it's a big part of our lives. Every once in a while we have these conversations, and we thought we'd just like to share those with you. So if you love music, sit back and enjoy this podcast.
Well, I just wanted to throw a subject out at you today. Cover songs. I know we've listened to a lot of cover songs in our lives, and good ones and bad ones.
And this is a subject near and dear to my heart. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know. I've looked back and after we talked about it a couple days ago, and kind of looked at stuff that I've listened to in the past, and it was odd too because I was listening to the radio last night and the Smooth Criminal cover by Alien Ant Farm came on.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, we're going to talk about this tomorrow. So, yeah, it was funny because the kid I was in the car with actually knew it was a cover too. And I said, well, it's kind of one of Michael Jackson's better songs anyways. But they did a pretty darn good job of that. So,
right. And it's funny because Tesla was in concert last night and they had a lot of hits, but what they were known for was that cover of Signs from Man Electrical Jam or whatever it was.
I'd actually forgotten about that.
No, it was funny. I mean, cover songs seem to tie together. I think they tie together genres. They tie together the fabric of music in general. Like that was a late 60s maybe or early 70s whenever the hippies were big, and Tesla did that in the early 90s probably.
Yeah, it had to be.
And it was brilliant. I mean, it was brilliantly done. I mean, they kept it realistic enough to the essence of the song, and I mean, especially being long-haired hippie people at the time.
Oh yeah, and
90s hair metal stuff.
Well, and that was an acoustic tour that they were doing, that they recorded that on too. And I was actually going to get to it at some point, but acoustic covers kind of are a different feel for the song.
Right, and see, that's what I started to touch on yesterday with you, with the difference of a true cover or an adapted, interpretation, I guess is the only word I could come up with. You talked about different genres, like you mentioned
Cash doing Nine Inch Nails.
Right, Cash doing Nine Inch Nails. I couldn't think of his name, and I think it's different to where such a thing like Chris Cornell covering Billie Jean acoustically it's basically writing a new song with lyrics that are already penned. You know what I mean? It's almost like a collaboration more than a cover.
Yeah.
It's the way it feels to me, like when they do acoustic covers that are that different than the original. But you touched on something yesterday, and nobody else heard it, but the whole a cover is a cover, and I started to disagree adamantly about it, and when I started listening to different versions of different covers last night, it appeared to me, or it appealed to me, that they are all covers. It's all the same. It's just an artist's interpretation, whether they want to keep some of the originality versus amping it up a little bit versus a true cover, like, we'll use Tesla's, cover of Signs.
Yeah.
Versus, something like that, like Chris Cornell's version of Billie Jean that was recorded live acoustically that's, nowhere close to the original, but I think it's almost more powerful than the original.
Yeah, and, if you look at the other end of the spectrum,
I don't know if you've heard of the cover of Boys of Summer by the Ataris.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean that's almost verbatim the song.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Somebody covered the Let's Go Crazy not too long ago.
Right.
By Prince.
Yeah, it was Yes, I know the song. Yeah.
I can't think who did it now, but that was really close to the original song. And I don't know. I guess I feel, when I look at something like that, it's like, yeah, they just kind of updated it, and you get a different voice, and you get a little slight different sound. But when you look at like Kurt Cobain doing "Man Who Sold the World" on the Unplugged.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
When another artist takes their interpretation and basically writes a new song with old lyrics,
right?
That to me is it's almost a dividing line. I mean, I get it; it's a cover, but would you consider then it gets into a blurry area of when like the Bee Gees wrote "Islands in the Stream" for Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton. Is that a cover, or is that just a song written by a different person?
So bands have have tendencies occasionally to dig really deep in some obscure band that's either never been heard of or only had one hit, and kind of dragging that stuff out. And I don't know, it's a cover. You're right, but we kind of alluding back to us having a conversation before, and I know sometimes we talk about this stuff ahead of time and then kind of flush it out here, but when I brought it up, a point that we were going to talk about, one of them was doing alternate genre covers, like a country band doing AC/DC, and
right,
and that kind of spurred us to talk back and forth about what is a cover and stuff, and that we wanted to hold that till we talked about it on the podcast, but I don't think you're right. I think that we were both on opposite ends when we talked, but I think we're coming to the middle ground that it's interpretive. They're going to do what they want to do with the song, and whether they pull something that was a B-side from 1962, a band never heard of, or if they pull like, Knocking on Heaven's Door by Guns N' Roses. That's an iconic song, and I think they've just bastardized that song at this point, because I can't even listen to it anymore.
I wasn't a huge fan of the original, and Guns N' Roses version literally makes me want to stop listening to music. It is that bad. I was never a Dylan fan to begin with, but
well, let's step back. What do you have a favorite? Do you have something that you like? As soon as you say cover song, you just go right to it. If you don't,
yes.
Oh, do you?
No,
okay.
I do. I love cover songs. To the nth degree. I truly enjoy. That's what I enjoy most about music, is the interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoy different versions. But Lenny Kravitz's version of "American Woman" that he did, I think it was on one of the soundtracks for the Austin Powers movies, I think, it took that song to a different level, and that's what I appreciate. I like this. I like Lenny's. It's I don't know if you want to. It's like it took that like almost protest anthem and made it like sexy.
Yeah. Good word. Good word.
It really changed the tone of the song. And I mentioned it earlier. My close second is Chris Cornell's version of Billie Jean for a while, but when he covered "Nothing Compares to You" by Sinead O'Connor, who the song was written by Prince.
Yeah,
so we're getting.
And I like the Prince version on that one. That one I'm twice removed on that one. I like the Prince version of that one, but
well, there you go. But that starts to get like Inception. It's a song within a song within a song written.
Exactly.
But you had three talented people do a song with three very different versions, and I like Chris Cornell's version best. I'm a huge Chris Cornell fan, but that being said, there's narrowing it down to like a favorite per se. I have a favorite song, one favorite song that, and it's More Than a Feeling by Boston.
Yeah.
But as far as a favorite cover,
yeah,
that's
a little harder.
That's a can of worms. That's a can of worms because I love cover songs. But American Woman by Lenny Kravitz has always been a top three, and I like Blitzkrieg Bop by Rob Zombie. When he covered the Ramones, I thought that was exquisitely done, and it gave that song a metal, push out of punk that helped that song too, because that song was kind of campy almost by the Ramones, and Rob Zombie made it very, very believable.
Yeah, no, and I would say that I would, I had actually forgotten that they covered that, and I was looking at the internet just to see if what Rolling Stone picked as the top 5 and the worst, top 5 best and top 5 worst, and I wasn't surprised that they picked a lot of cliche ones, but for me, up until recently, there was a song that I would go to as soon as anybody talked about covers. I went to a song, and then it also went to an album, but lately, I'll be honest with you, I know we might disagree on this one, but the Sound of Silence cover that Disturbed did is quickly rising for me. I am
the moment I heard that, I listened to it probably between 50 and 60 times in a row. And
so we don't
not
disagree
lying.
on that one.
No, I'm not lying. But I thought the Simon and Garfunkel version was epic.
Yeah.
And it gave me it gave me goosebumps when it came on originally.
Yeah.
The arrangement in that song, and I was totally blown away by Dave Draymond's voice.
Yeah.
The ability, I can take or leave Disturbed on most. They're very, very vanilla. That song, I think mainly the interpretation of that song and his ability is what blew me away. And it's still, they got a lot of radio play down here, rock radio play, mainstream every half hour, and it still doesn't get old.
Well, I would say that if I'd have to go back and listen to it for sure, but I'm pretty sure they lowered the key of it, and that really, in playing, I play on the worship team in church, and we sometimes lower keys of things to accommodate the singers, but you get a different feel of that song then. Like they're supposed to be up-tempo songs, where we play, and then, when you drop on the key, you kind of lose that up feeling, and it definitely darkened it. But it matched his voice so much better, too. But
that song was melancholy at best to begin with when Simon and Garfunkel did it, and it made it creepy almost. It made it very, very real in a modern day.
But aside from that, technically when somebody says cover, I really still go to this one song that I heard years ago, and it'd also be kind of a nice segue into the next part I wanted to talk about, but Speed Racer by Sponge on the Saturday Morning Cartoons CD. A great version of a song that really wasn't even a song. I don't know if you consider, theme songs for TV actually songs, but that whole album was just an amazing mix of different bands who, at the time, some of them weren't even heard of and kind of took off after that. But, that kind of brings up a good question. Full albums of songs, do as versus tribute bands, because I know there's tribute bands out there or tribute to this band type of albums, and then there's albums like Garage Days by Metallica where they just basically said, hey, let's go into the studio and record a bunch of songs that we love.
Never heard,
we love. We grew up with these songs, and these songs are what influenced us. And then you get, tribute albums where you get a lot of different bands dedicating themselves to just AC/DC songs or just Metallica songs.
Right.
What do you feel about those two things?
It's funny because there's a very limited selection. I know you brought that up, and there's a very limited selection as far as, entire album bands doing entire cover albums versus individual songs. To step back just for a second, the first cover song I heard when I was and you're probably not going to believe me, but I've never listened to the original intentionally. I couldn't even tell you if it's close or not, or if it. But the first cover song I heard was "Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath" by Anthrax, the Black Sabbath cover.
Forgot that was on there.
And I have never listened to the Black Sabbath version intentionally, because that's when I bought "I'm the Man" cassette, to date myself. That song, I was like, wow, and and then you said, well, it's a cover song. I'm like, oh, what? Yeah, it's Black Sabbath did that like in '77 or '79 or something like that. I'm like, and back then that was mid '80s, so that was still relatively newish cover. Yeah. So, but that song has carried water into, but that was on an EP, so much like the Garage Days, and they did it twice. I mean, Metallica's, I'd hate to say wagered, 25% of their career on cover albums because they did it twice. When they did Garage Days, the 598 EP or whatever it was, they covered Sam Hain and Black Diamond and
obscure stuff.
But when they did Whiskey in the Jar and Turn the Page by Bob Seger, it was a different level because people recognized those.
Right.
So,
well, if you look at it from the other point of view, if people that were big Metallica fans at the time, and they had a couple albums out, I think they might have been in on Lightning, Red Lightning at that point.
Yeah.
Or it was right after. So they were getting pretty popular, and to take bands that influenced them and put them onto a CD and in their versions, introduce people to that sound,
Yes, but how big a risk is that, when you're in a blossoming career?
It's exactly where I was going with it is, a lot of bands will do a cover song in their live set. They'll pick a song that, kind of everybody knows, and it'll be like the break in the middle or the reprise, and, I did it, the band I was in did it. And it kind of gets, I don't want to say cliche, that you start doing kind of the same one over and over again, but yeah, they took the chance. They took a chance with an entire album of that. I mean, hey, we're going to put our name on something, and we're going to spend a bunch of money, and the label's going to let us do it. What kind of chance is that? But, who's done it since? Has anybody done, an album of cover songs? And they've done it twice. Yeah,
no, that's what I mean. When you asked that question, that's why I said there's a very limited selection, and even. I hate to say a lot of bands, but I would say a lot of bands. Most bands, sophomore or third album, if they get that far, it seems like there's almost a requirement.
Yeah, put one on there.
Seether's "Careless Whisper."
Yep.
Pussifer did "Rocket Man." There's an infinite number of quality covers, and like I said, to put a big bow on this, Anthrax recently covered "Carry On Wayward Son."
Yeah,
and it was brilliant. That. I mean, it was really, really good. I mean, it was a testament to the original one. But there again, what makes bands, pick, their first cover that I remember hearing them do was. And they even mocked, Iron Maiden on, at the end of
it, yeah.
Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. So I mean, where do bands draw that from? I mean, and in your career, earlier in your career, we'll use Metallica. They're covering, like I said, Black Diamond and or King Diamond and bands of that nature that nobody had ever heard of.
Right.
And now 14 albums in, you're covering Bob Seger.
Right.
And, obscure Irish bands, with Whiskey in the Jar, which
was also covered by Thin Lizzy.
It's been covered by a lot of people.
Yeah,
the actual original.
It's traditional.
And I was talking to my other friend Sean about because we talk covers and music a lot anyway. And he said, here, I'm really going to throw a wrench in your whole operating system. He's like, basically if you go to an orchestra, they're all cover bands because they're all.
True.
If you listen to Beethoven or anything, you never heard the original.
That's true.
I'm like,
yeah, I know, and I will say that back. If you look back at albums, I mentioned that Metallica might be the only one that's done, and obviously other bands have made tribute albums too. But I mean, how many can you think of? I mean, I'll name one, and honestly, I had kind of skipped over. We got a list of what we wanted to talk about, and I kind of skipped over ones that shouldn't have been done. But how about the Spaghetti Incident by Guns N' Roses?
But see, that wasn't completely covers though.
Yeah, it was all covers.
Was it really?
Yeah, it might have been one or two songs that they'd written just for that, but I'm pretty sure it was all covers. I'm gonna look it up just to be sure, but yeah, I mean, but what do can you think of any other bands that
no
have done full albums?
No, that's what I said. It's a very limited selection versus entire albums of different bands doing covers. Like Godsmack just did that Joe Walsh song,
right.
Rocky Mountain Way,
right?
And that was on an album of different bands doing all covers, and they did like Ronnie James Dio tribute albums, where who just did Holy Diver really well? Somebody.
Oh yeah, we talked about it too when it came out. Yeah, but that again, I see that as something different. I see those tribute albums as kind of something different. That
right, and I think I would truly have to say that Metallica, having done it twice, they captured lightning in a bottle twice, for lack of a better pun. But they're the only ones that really hit it out of the park, if nothing else. I mean, because the Spaghetti Incident, I mean, like you said, if you're going to consider, a Dylan cover, that you can't even listen to worthy of that. I mean, they made songs that you'd never even heard of. Cool, Metallica did,
Well, I will tell you that Spaghetti Incident was all covers, and there's a lot of stuff on there that I'd forgotten they'd done on there, and this is going to certainly stick in my shouldn't have been done. How about Hair of the Dog? Do you remember them covering that?
Oh, God, yes.
Yes.
Wow.
And they actually did a Misfits song. I didn't remember that, but I remember now that. Yeah. Oh, so you got Since I Don't Have You, which was by the Skyliners, an old, traditional 50s song. New Rose by the Damned, which I'd never heard of.
Yeah.
Down on the Farm, which is just kind of the UK subs is what it is, the original band. Human Being by the New York Dolls, which I think that one actually might have been good now that I remember back to it. Raw Power by the Stooges, which,
that's
what?
The original song is good.
Yes, yeah. I was going to say Iggy Pop was an amazing musician.
Yeah.
Ain't It Fun by the Dead Boys, which probably nobody's heard of. Buick McCain by T-Rex, which it's T-Rex Soundgarden. I didn't know Mark Bolan and Chris Cornell wrote that together. That seems different. Hair of the Dog, obviously. Attitude by the Misfits. Black Leather by the Professionals. You Can't Put Your Arms Around a Memory by Johnny Thunders. I Don't Care About You by Fear, and Look at Your Game Girl by Charles Manson.
Yeah, see, that's pretty much going to have to go under the shouldn't have been done.
Exactly. That's where I was going with it.
I mean, if you bring the track list up to the 5, Crash Course in Brain Surgery or something of that nature to reference it by, I mean, even if you've heard the originals, I mean, what was that? Pearl Jam covered like a 50s crooner.
It's one of my wife's favorite songs. She likes it. It is Last Kiss.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there again, what prompts, we know Guns Axl is eccentric as the day is long, but what prompts a band to decide what they're gonna cover? was a big question that I had. I mean, obviously their influences are a big deal.
Well, let's look at that. Okay, so Garage Days Revisited, the first one, was put out in '87.
Wow. I mean, they came out in '83, right? I mean, so that's like 4 years into your career. Go ahead.
Spaghetti Incident was '93. So yeah, if you go back to, yes, we're going to do influences, and we'll, kind of go from there. But Revisited, the original was only 5 songs.
Oh,
I
yeah.
feel like it was a lot longer.
Oh, no. No, I mean, and they're brilliant. They run together brilliantly.
You got Helpless by Diamond Head, The Small Hours by Holocaust, still never heard of them, The Wait by Killing Joke, know who they are.
The Wait is just an amazing song, sorry.
Yeah. Crash Course in Brain Surgery by Budgie, and Last Caress Green Hell by Misfits, which I've been a huge Misfits fan, and that's kind of where that came from, actually. I wanted to find some of those bands and see what they were, and that really started me on listening to the Misfits.
Okay, real quick. Pick 5 other cover songs that you could play consecutively like that and not skip one.
Yeah, exactly. No, I can't. There's absolutely nothing that I can do that.
It was just a great EP. That was amazing. That was quality work. But anyway, the influences. I mean, or is it part of the business where your label says, hey, I mean, because would Seether pick George Michael's as an influence to do Careless Whisper, or would they do it just for radio play and for sales because they know it was it sold 1 trillion copies when it was new?
Yeah, I don't know, because that would obviously be questions for the bands. If we could sit down and talk to them, I'd love to know. I would love to, we talked about Sound of Silence earlier. Did they do that because it's an iconic song, or did he do that because he grew up listening to it? We've kind of went back and forth about, music and stuff, how we were brought up with music and how we got into different music. And when, growing up, we were listening. Dad was listening to Gordon Lightfoot, and Mom was listening to ABBA, and
Blondie.
Our uncles were listening to
Bad Company and Foreigner and Journey,
Dr. Hook and the Medicine Show.
And
yeah, exactly. And that's still one of my favorite things to listen to, is listen to them do like Carry On Carry, which is just gives me goosebumps every time I hear it. But we were influenced by that music, and I still closet listen to ABBA on a regular basis.
Closet listen. I got a station on my Pandora.
But it's interesting though, because I wasn't a huge Black Sabbath fan, but in the band that I was in, we were influenced by rock, so we chose to do a medley of War Pigs and Paranoid.
Right.
But it's because everybody knew it, and it's not that we didn't know it. But I didn't grow up with it. It wasn't something that, my parents, obviously our parents didn't listen to Black Sabbath or anything like that when we were kids.
Sure.
But I would love to know what guides those guys into those songs. Is it because that they grew up in their parents' bedroom sitting and listening to, a record on a turntable of Sound of Silence, and it just stuck with him for his life? Or, hey, this is a really cool song, let's just do it and we can make a bunch of money. I would hope is the former, but sometimes it is the latter.
Right, and that's what I mean. I can't reverse that and use Johnny Cash. I mean, because he was around a few days before 9 Inch Nails ever came up.
Yeah,
and sadly, one of Johnny Cash's largest selling or biggest known hits is a cover of 9 Inch Nails' "Hurt."
Yeah, and he did such a really, towards the end of his life, he put that album together of a lot of covers and older stuff of his, kind of redone. And
right.
I listened to that song, and man, I don't know. I would hope that maybe he was just attached to the words, like the words stuck out to him, and he just grabbed a hold of it.
I guess because we were sitting at the table last night, and my wife and I listened to both versions, and she's like, "Oh, I like the Johnny Cash version way better."
Yeah,
and I said, "Yeah, you would as a country fan, but it truly. I mean, the 9 Inch Nails. Trent Reznor wrote that from a deep, dark hole, of heroin addiction. And I said, listen to the lyrics. The needle tears the skin, that old familiar sting. I mean, what? Again, I don't know if Johnny Cash had a heroin addiction or not, but I mean, whatever it is, that to me it falls into. I think you started to touch on it at one point. Ones that should have been done. Are there songs that shouldn't be covered?
Yeah. Yeah, we've talked about that many times before about, don't touch that song. Don't do that. There's songs out there that, like you said, your favorite song is More Than a Feeling.
Right.
If anybody was to touch that song, it would be automatically discounted.
Right.
I would be like, you can't do that. You can't pick that song. Stairway to Heaven. If anybody was to try and do a mainstream cover of Stairway to Heaven,
right.
Hotel
California, same way.
Yeah, exactly. So, but you kind of touched on something there with, Johnny Cash taking the words out of something. Yes, the same melody is there, but taking the words and transforming it. And I'm not saying that Trent Reznor wasn't writing something that he was passionate about, but at the time, the genre fit, and what he was saying was personal to him. But if you take that idea and look at a song like Dynamite Hack's cover of Boys in the Hood, where they change the feel of that song, but the words are still about that life.
That's exactly.
And but go ahead. But they change what they mean almost.
Right, and that's what I was talking about. Different, like, again, I'll go back to Chris Cornell's version of Billie Jean.
Yeah.
Michael Jackson wrote that song about some girl trying to, say he was the father of her baby, and it was a true story. He went to court and all this other stuff. And Chris Cornell made that song infinitely more recognizable.
Yeah. Well, I like you said, or like I was saying, it doesn't. It makes the words mean something
different.
I don't want to say more, but definitely something different,
right? And
sometimes more,
right? And that to me is truly the essence, the meat and potatoes of a cover song is if an artist can take a song and change it. And I was playing covers for Jennifer last night, and I said, I was making sure I played the originals. I just heard one on Pandora the other day. Was the Goo Goo Dolls covered a Jackson Browne song.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
Oh, I did see that. Yeah, I saw that. I can't think of the name of it now.
Yeah, as first and only time I'd heard it, I was like, wow, that's pretty good. But where in that essence do you think excuse me, that artists take too many liberties in their decisions? Like I played, like, Aha did Take On Me, and so did Real Big Fish. They did a punk ska version of an 80s techno classic.
Yeah.
That was bigger known for or as known for its video as it was the actual song. The black and white pencil drawing video. But where do you think artists can take too much liberty in their interpretation of a song?
Yeah, I think it really depends. I think that comes back to for lack of better words, the arrogance of the band to assume that they're going to do something justice. And I think you're right. I think there's bands out there that just do it because they can. And we talked about whether the bands actually do it because they can or because they care about it. But I think it shows. I think when you actually hear a cover song that it doesn't do justice, you're like, yeah, that was for the money. That was for putting something down because the label asked you to do a cover or something like that. I think I think people that are smart about music can hear that stuff.
Yeah.
And can feel what ones do it justice and which ones don't.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I think that shows pretty well. A lot.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering if you got to a point where you're like knocking on heaven's door, just as a gleaming, standing, golden cow to that homage. But
I wouldn't say it's the worst. Again, it's not.
No.
It's not good, but it's certainly not the worst. I've heard a lot of horrible covers. Actually, so what I'll do is we're kind of getting close to. I don't want to run too much overtime on getting this out to everybody and people losing interest in what we're talking about. But what I want to do is I pulled up the Rolling Stone top 10 covers of all time. I want to kind of get your input, what you thought of what their list is.
Okay, it doesn't take me long to decide, so I've heard most of them probably.
I actually, a couple of them I hadn't heard. Muse covered "Feeling Good."
Really?
Never heard of it.
No. What are you starting at the bottom, or where are you at?
Yeah, I'm starting at 10.
Of the best or worst?
This is of the best.
Okay.
I'll read you the worst too, but this is of the best. I was a little shocked. I'm going to read you number 9, and we can just shut up and kind of glean over it and go to number 8.
Sure.
Number 9 is "Knocking on Heaven's Door" by Guns N' Roses. Let's go on to number 8.
Fair enough.
Nirvana, "Where Did You Sleep Last Night?" which is on what
it's brilliant on the Unplugged.
We talked about Unplugged earlier, but they picked this one as number. They actually, the title says they picked 2 of them in the top 10 from this album, which I agree. The covers they did in that set were just phenomenal. Yeah. But this one I was kind of shocked. I would have went, "Man Who Sold the World" and the what was the other one he did that was a really good cover. I think it's actually on here, but
the
Lake of Fire. Lake of Fire was the other one.
But
there was a cover.
"Where Did You Sleep Last Night?" You can. I'm actually getting goosebumps thinking about it.
I am too. At the end of the song.
Yeah, you can hear Cobain's agony in that song. That song breaks my heart, and I've never heard the original.
Yeah, I have. I actually went back and listened to it when I heard it because I didn't know it was a cover until much later, and then went back and listened to the original. And the original is okay, but man, he does extreme justice.
Yeah, I just say that's one of those that covers.
Ooh, number 7's one of my personal favorites, and I actually heard this and didn't know it was a cover as well. But the White Stripes doing "Jolene."
See, that's one of your genre jumpers, and I know you like both. And I watched an interview with Jack White not too long ago, and was thoroughly impressed. Side note, but
don't like it.
Only because I've never been a huge country fan, and I know Dolly Parton did the original, and but he makes that song believable again.
True.
I mean, and because I've heard the original a lot more than the cover, so I don't have anything against it. I'm just not a huge fan of country in general.
Okay, so "Twist and Shout" by the Beatles. First off, didn't know it was a cover. The Isley Brothers did it originally.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting.
No, I knew the Isley Brothers did that originally, but I think the Beatles, that's truly one of those where they made that their song.
Yeah, it's iconic. Yeah. I mean, when you think of that song, there's no way you go back to the original on that one. So.
The only thing anybody thinks about is Ferris Bueller on a float anyway.
Exactly. Anyway. Number 5 is "Man Who Sold the World," Nirvana, which
David Bowie.
I thought was
the original is stellar, and Nirvana completely paid justice to that song.
Yeah.
I mean,
and that's one that's stays pretty close to the original, but still gives a completely different feel to it. So number 4 was Joe Cocker, "A Little Help from My Friends," with "A Little Help from My Friends," Beatles cover. It's I give or take either one of those, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, I mean I never cared for the original, but Joe Cocker, you can't deny Joe Cocker. Sorry.
Yeah.
Joe Cocker was somebody else on stage.
That's one of those songs that he did give it his own sound, but honestly, I'm equal on both. But number 3 is Jeff Buckley doing "Hallelujah," which, I'm not a fan of the song anyways.
Really?
Yeah.
huge fan of the actual song, but that's probably one of the top 5 most covered songs.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of people do that song and butcher it.
But that's number 3.
I don't think Jeff Buckley's version is the best version of that song.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. Yeah. Johnny Cash Hurt, number 2. Look at that.
You know, and again,
do we need to say more?
No. Well, yeah, I want to touch on it briefly because I you know, when Nine Inch Nails was huge, early '90s, that's when I was, you know, in my late teen angst version of, and Nine Inch Nails spoke to me. Trent Reznor's aggression and, you know, early Marilyn Manson in the band, that type, or Brian Warner, I guess, whatever you want to call him then. That song, the Downward Spiral album was intense on a lot of levels, a lot of songs.
Right.
And I don't fault Johnny Cash for doing this song. I don't know if it's his second best cover all time. I mean, it was at the end of his career, and it was weak. I think it was weak. His performance was.
Yeah, but I think it fit. I think it fit the feel of that song. You're right. I agree. You could tell that he was struggling.
I don't hate it, but I don't know if it's number 2 best cover of all time for Rolling Stone.
Well, you're going to hate number 1, so
I don't know.
Jimi Hendrix, All Along the Watchtower.
Of the Dylan song.
Yeah. I don't know.
The best
I mean, for me, it's
really well. I mean,
yeah. Trying to find out when this article came out, because that feels like there's probably been a couple that could oust that recently, but
yeah,
it's mediocre at best for me. The song's okay, but Jimi Hendrix certainly did it better. I've heard both versions. I think Jimi Hendrix certainly did it better.
I'm not a Dylan fan by any stretch of the imagination.
Well,
we talked about, you know, in conversations past, you know, the appeal of Dylan and Jim Morrison and so on and so forth. That's a different podcast, but it'd be hard to disagree. I mean, as far as the best, I mean, doing a song that nobody has really ever heard the original of, probably, or most people haven't. I mean, they all know the Hendrix version, and that falls into radio play, I think, you know, because, you know, everybody knows.
Okay.
Good.
I'm going to give you a quick rundown, and we don't have to comment on these if you don't want to, but I'm going to give you a quick rundown of the 10 worst that they pulled for.
All right, we'll start with the 10th worst.
William Shatner doing Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Never heard it, but yeah, whatever.
Oh yeah.
Jessica Simpson doing These Boots Are Made for Walking.
See, from the Dukes of Hazzard soundtrack, that wasn't that bad.
I was going to say, I didn't think that was horrible. And
the Nancy Sinatra song wasn't exactly great.
Just what I was going to say.
I mean,
number 8, Avril Lavigne doing Imagine, which is, if you've ever heard it, it is painful to listen to. Yes,
but there again, I don't even like the original, but that song in general shouldn't be covered.
Britney Spears doing I Love Rock and Roll. I didn't know she did this, but they've got Alien Ant Farm, A Smooth Criminal on here, which I really like the cover of that. I really think the cover not only did justice to the song, but it gave it a completely different vibe of, you know, almost a sway that was different, but really just groovy. I loved it. I don't think it's great, but it's certainly not in the top 10 worst. Yeah.
I mean, I don't love it. I mean, it's not like epic or anything like that, but
I guess Britney Spears covered I Can't Get No Satisfaction. Makes my heart hurt.
Yeah.
Sheryl Crow covering Sweet Child of Mine. Have you heard this?
I have,
it's
and
painful.
It's as bad as you think.
It is so painful.
Yeah, that's hard. That's really hard to get past.
Madonna doing American Pie. I want to shoot myself when I hear that one.
Yeah.
Number 2, Limp Bizkit, Behind Blue Eyes.
What? See, no, absolutely not.
I love that song. I love that version.
I truly wish they would have went into the heavy part of that song. Like,
I agree.
You know, put your fingers down my throat. I really wish they would have, instead of the speak and spell. You know,
I still like that though.
I do, but I wish they would have.
Yeah, I agree.
Truly finished that song, because I think Limp Bizkit's cover of Faith is probably the most epic twist on I like the George Michael version. Just sidebar, real quick.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
Limp Bizkit like blew that song apart.
I agree. I have a hard time. That's one of those ones where you can take a dose and you really don't need a dose for another couple months, and then you know you can come back to it again.
One time, but it's got to be like full volume
Yeah.
and your ears bleeding because wow, that song just explodes out of the speakers. But go ahead.
So
What's
number one is Miley Cyrus doing "Smells Like Teen Spirit."
Well,
I didn't know she did this, and I'm even afraid to look it up at this
I'm not
point.
even going to because I don't want to be in that mood all day on a Saturday. But,
Well, just tied up. You got any other parting shots that you want to throw at me? Songs you
not specifically, but I covers. I mean, to put a bow on all of this, cover songs are amazing, and whether they're done well or not, I think I had like this. I was going to coin a phrase that, I don't like all cover songs, but all cover songs are amazing.
Yeah. I mean, like we talked about with bands making choices to do it and why. I think if a band really feels attached to a song, or even one member and says, "Hey, I'd like to do this," I think it's going to come out good in some way, either whether it's interpretive or it takes the lyrics and really kind of makes them feel what they should have been felt, like the original song just didn't feel it. I think you're right. I think any cover that comes out of bands is at least showing their either appreciation for that song or their want to make that song what they got out of it. And as much as we ragged on Spaghetti Incident, Axl probably was really close to some of those songs. He might have been passionate about one of those songs at one point, or Slash might have been passionate about one of those songs and said, "Hey, I'd really love to do this song." So I think you're right. I think cover songs are definitely to the taste, but you're right. I think they're all pretty amazing. So,
but it's by far my favorite genre. I
agree.
I love when I hear a cover song, and it truly warms my heart, especially if it's a song that I know. If I have to go back, and my parting shot is Static X's version of Elvis Presley's Speedway, and because when I heard that song, I was like, wow, that's a great song, and you're like, yeah, that's an Elvis Presley song, and it completely ruined my day.
Yeah.
When I heard the original, I was like, wow, and then I heard it was.
So that's your go away song.
My parting shot is Speedway by Static X. Check it out.
I would say that mine is probably Bloodhound Gang's cover of Tricky.
Oh my God.
That's my parting shot.
I haven't even thought about that song in a long time. I have to,
So cool.
Bloodhound Gang, they were gold at that stuff too.
I know. But thanks for hanging out and just talking. We'll probably catch up in a couple weeks, and we got a couple subjects written down, so we'll hit a couple of them in a couple weeks. I don't know if I want to tease any or not, but maybe I'll throw something up on the page when I put it up then.
All right, 10-4, brother. Thanks.
Yep. Take it easy, bro.
See ya.